Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with American Scouser. It's a Monday. The Chicago gang over here is back. I should have probably put Grumpy's here as always on a Monday. I should have probably put tea in there, shaking off this cold, but old habits die hard. Is that what you got going? You got tea over there?
Earl Grey tea
Oh, the
honey,
worst.
with honey and a splash of milk. Oh, it is delicious, and it's healing, Timothy. It's healing.
There's nothing Earl Grey can't heal, my friend. Actually, yeah, like tea with honey and lemon is probably what I should have gone with too. But we're at the final stages of shaking off a cold over here. I even had it on like Friday and everything, but it's what goes on. Welcome to married life, where your wife
Just
constantly
always sick.
keeps you cold.
If this is what marriage is, I hate it already. Oh shit.
Is this what you were gonna give me, the cold? Some weird headlines to get to over here. So let's start with the Liverpool stuff.
Yeah, let's start with before you say anything. You had a promise last week, and it didn't come through. Again.
Again, yeah, which one? I mean, I don't keep track anymore.
The there was no new sign. You were saying maybe there'd be two signings, like there'd be a signing and a strong link.
That
There
promise.
hasn't been anything. What the hell, man?
Yeah, I am pretty disappointed in myself. I talked to Jurgen last night. I'm like, you're making me fucking look bad, bro. But yeah, I really thought we would be faster with this, and I know we're watching the money at the same time. We're trying to figure out incomings and outgoings. There's talk about Thiago. There's talk about Henderson still. I don't know. Those are just talks because just like anybody else, you look at the squad. If you're an intern trying to make some clickbait at a newspaper, you look at the squad. Those are probably the only two names that you can come up with and say realistic. Like the people will bite on this kind of a thing, right? Like, can you think of any other player that Liverpool would be willing to sell and would fetch some money from the Saudis?
If if they were willing to sell, I feel like we would have seen someone go already. But from the looks of it, I feel like Klopp again is pretty comfortable with what he has. I could see the only names I could see leaving would be Thiago and Nat Phillips. But Nat Phillips one is tough because it's a homegrown. Of course, people talking about Henderson and having links to Saudi Arabia. That doesn't make any sense. He's the captain of this team, and he is also homegrown. And he's going to go to Sunderland next, you guys. I keep saying this. He's going to go to Sunderland, so it's fine. He's not going to go to Saudi Arabia. If he does, so be it. But not this year. It's going to take a few years before he
Oh
even
yeah, we
goes
had
over
a
there.
huge thing on Friday where I kept saying that I would rather lose Thiago than Henderson, and
Oh yeah,
it was met with great backlash. But that's a different story.
10
But
out of 10 times.
yep, okay. See, we got to get you on Fridays as well.
No,
So the manager Rogerio Micale, I just made that up. He would like to have Mohamed Salah join them for the Olympics, which would mean he would miss the beginning of the season afterwards. I think you can wish all you want, but we can put this in the nice try category, right?
yeah. Like, hey, that's a cute effort, but it's not going to happen. I think I don't want to downplay the Olympics, and I think it does mean something to players to play represent their country in the Olympics, but the World Cup for this sport is much more prestigious than the Olympics. Given that the Olympics have the under 23 rule, where you can only have what is it, two or three senior level players on a
Used
team.
to be three. I don't know if it changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I can understand why he would want him to play for the team, given that he is the best Egyptian player in the world. But given what I think Mo wants to accomplish at the club level, I don't think even he himself would want to go to the Olympics for Egypt. I'm speaking for him, and I have no idea how he feels about the situation, obviously. But in my mind, I'm thinking that if this was maybe AFCON, they'd be different, obviously, because he's going to miss games as is. But the Olympics, I don't think holds the same sort of weight that other international competitions do in this sport.
I would agree. Allen's does this morning, and Sparky is at Cork this morning. Where is Sparky? Game continues. Answer today is Cork. I agree to that for a player who has played like the World Cup and all these other tournaments and stuff like that. I just feel like, yeah, it would not be. You're not going to lure, I don't think, Mo out of there. Like, if Mo really wanted to, he probably would and could and all that kind of stuff. But I agree with you. I don't think he says, yeah, this is more important. The Olympics. Olympics mean everything to me. Because you're right. Yeah, Olympics is, I don't know. I'm assuming it's similar in Egypt, where there are certain sports you're good in, right? Like, you kind of like watch those sports as a country. And then when your country is based on football, and that's the main sport, then obviously that gets a lot of attention. But it's only because it would normally get a lot of attention anyway. Like, you're not going to maybe watch javelin or something like that, like when you watch Olympics, but you're going to watch soccer even if your country is not in there. You're going to watch it because that's what you watch. That's your
right.
And that's the only thing, for the most part, Olympics offers you as a soccer fan, around the world. Where like soccer is the sport, and then you watch, if you're Turkish, for some reason you watch weightlifting and stuff because your dude has the weightlifting. You learn the rules, which in 4 years, by the time you watch the next Olympics,
they forget
anyway. So then you have to relearn them and everything. Saidu's with us this morning. Good morning, Saidu.
And I think
I agree
with the Olympics, they're not necessarily paid, right? I feel like that's a different situation too with the pay. At least there's no organization. I really don't know. So I'm not sure what the details are behind that, but I don't know if that has something to do with it as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I don't think Mo would be like, well, I'm not going there for free. But I don't know if that's changed because, yeah, it used to be the, non-professional athletes, but they were like, the hell with this. So everybody's going to it now. Like, do the NBA players get paid to be there? You would think they are somehow, right?
I think there is something that does pay them, whether it's
an entity.
Something just rains money down from the sky and it just drops on their head. Whether it's the sponsorships they have with the company of the shoes they're wearing or whatnot, or if there's some sort of organization that is tied to the team that gives them money, or maybe there's some sort of incentives from their own teams that are made. If you go, you get X amount of money. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, that's something for our research department to get on and report back to us once we hire them. We should be good to go in this category. Let's get back to some transfer stuff. Harry Kane, the second offer is refused. In our transfer rumor radar, where do you put this Kane to Bayern deal?
I'm gonna put it in the not bloody likely section.
Really? Okay.
Yep. I think unless Bayern does an absolutely absurd, like $120 million bid, that
what are we at? 80 right now. 80 got shut down.
And then Levy's looking at it like, well, that is $40 extra million for for more London football games to come here and advertise. So maybe this could help with the NFL. I don't know. But in all seriousness, I don't think Harry Kane wants to leave the English league when he's less than 50 goals away from breaking the record. I doubt he would want to leave at this point in his career to go to a club like Bayern, where he's going to win a trophy or two, but they're kind of empty trophies. I don't want to downgrade and downplay what the players do at Bayern, because obviously they have to perform, they have to compete to be able to win these trophies, but when you look at it historically and see that one team wins every title in the last 20 years, like how prestigious is that title then? If they were able to go and win the Champions League year after year, then that means something, because then they're competing at a level against the other clubs across the continent in a way that actually says that they are as good as they are. But if you're in a league where it's essentially two teams every year and the second team is allergic to winning, then it's tough to really give you any sort of credit. And I think Harry Kane has gone through enough shit in his career from media about the trophies that I think him going to Bayern and winning a Mickey Mouse League title, League Cup, whatever the case, either one, would look even worse on his resume. So I think he wants to stay in England. I think he wants to break the record. I hate saying it. I feel like United's probably the best fit for him. And if they wanted to make it happen, that's probably who they should be going for as their forward. But yeah.
You think though Tottenham, if both sides are giving the same money, they would rather sell to Bayern than United?
Oh yeah, I'm sure they would rather buy it, unless there's some sort of taxes thing that maybe he gets more money if it stays in England kind of thing. But you absolutely would want to sell to Bayern instead of United in that situation.
You think that? My thing was, and we were talking about this last Wednesday with the dudes Wes and Alex from like the Chicago Cottagers, and they were talking. What I was asking them is, as Kane, if you're Kane, let's face it, it's just not us that has to see that he does get preferential treatments in the Premier League in terms of getting calls and stuff like that. That stuff is not going to happen in Germany. Wouldn't that be a deciding factor in where you want to stay in terms of you're respected as a player in the league? So that's why you're getting those calls and stuff like that. And obviously, being the England captain and stuff holds weight in the Premier League. Nobody is going to care. Actually, you might get the negative backlash when you go to Germany and play as the England captain.
Yeah, I don't know if who's to say he wouldn't get preferential treatment at Bayern overall, because I think Bayern might get preferential treatment usually, right? I mean, I don't watch enough Bundesliga to make that statement make sense to me 100% and be honest about it. But I feel like if you're winning titles year after year for decades, there's probably some sort of preferential treatment from somewhere, maybe like a call or two that goes your way. So obviously he wouldn't get as much as he is now. Yeah. But I feel like he still could get a little bit. But to Saidu's point, and kind of what I was saying before, like he's gonna break the record. Or is Saidu saying he's not going to break the record?
I think he's saying the transfer is not possible because I think he's easily able to break the record.
Yeah, and that's, I think, if anything, if he doesn't win, but there's this question. Okay, let me turn this around to you. If he does break the EPL scoring record, stays at Spurs, and then maybe makes a move elsewhere, but never wins a title, but holds the record for the greatest goal scorer in EPL history, will people view him as such, or will they say that they were sort of empty goals?
I don't know. When you look back at players and you have a guy who scored all these goals and didn't win anything, you would look at it like you would still probably respect the dude, but you would probably see it more as he kind of wasted his talents by staying there. Like you would have you should have left Tottenham, man, but that's a different story, and then you just move on. If you're Kane, I just don't know. At this stage, you're 29, like I just said. Like you're 29, right? You're like you can pick a couple of different routes here, and one of those routes, the most likely, is really breaking the record. And he can break the record and say, stayed in Tottenham and broke the record, as opposed to, it's not like he goes to United and is guaranteed a title, the next team he goes to. And I don't know, will it mean more if he stays in Tottenham all the way through and gets that record compared to, going to City or somebody like that and getting the record at the end?
It probably means more for Spurs fans.
To Kane, you think it means more?
Maybe, yeah. I think we'll never really know what players want the most. Maybe he just wants the scoring record and he doesn't care about any trophies. Maybe the trophy for him is being England's all-time greatest goal scorer in the Premier League, because that's a pretty legitimate title to have. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
I think, and this goes back, I think yesterday, it was either scrolling online or having a conversation about the culture in NBA fandom and how it's so obsessed about player accomplishments because there's only 5 guys on the court. One player has so much more of an impact on the team than 1 out of 11 does. So I think so. Like the ring culture in NBA, you're not going to have fans don't respect players as much if they don't win any titles. Where I feel like in soccer, there could be a different mindset there because there are so many players on the pitch at one time, and you only have so much effect out of that 11. And there's so many other factors that go into winning a potential league or cup or whatever title, whatever trophy you're going for. And I think maybe individual records are still seen more highly than not.
I think that's fair. I just feel like you're looking at Kane's situation, right? He's been there forever. And when you know the shit show you're in, I think it says a lot that he's still there somehow, right? You would think all these managers coming in and going, you can kind of hear them as they're driving away, putting it in gear. They're like, what a shit show. And then as they're driving off, you would think you'd be like, yeah, this is a shit show. Why am I still here? You would think eventually he would have asked for a transfer out if he was not overall content with how things are going there, because it's been going like that for a long time.
Maybe he did.
He thinks he's the one who's going to change it. I want to be the one that's the top scorer and brings a trophy to Spurs.
Yeah,
A bigger achievement perhaps than being the top scorer.
Well, you could say similar things for Hugo Lloris, right? Like in his day, for several years, he was one of the best goalkeepers in the league. And you could say something for Son. You know, he's had several years where he could have left and gone elsewhere too. I think had they not made that Champions League final a few years ago, I think he would have been gone by now. But given that they were able to make it to that stage, that point, and feel like there is a chance to get to that level again, I think maybe that had something to do with him staying. Could be a loyalty thing. Could be just a very content thing. He's just really happy just to be where he is, and that's it. But unless we really get into his brain, I don't know if we'll know the answer.
Chris says, have Spurs become like Chelsea, where some of the players have more power than the manager? Came the second coming of John Terry Lamps at Chelsea. I really think it's very possible that, you know, all these managers coming in and going, like Levy is saying, like, how are things over there? Like, man, this guy is on our ass all the time. I think, so it's not to a certain extent, to a larger extent, Conte was dead on his way out. That these players are pretty freaking comfortable with the low expectations, living in London, making good money. I mean, I think one of the shows, you know, we were talking in the morning again, how, you know, it's a pretty good gig to play at Spurs, because it feels like you don't have that amount of pressure. The bar is a lot lower. Like I say, you're still in London, making a ton of money, living the good life. And why not? And it's constantly the managers one after another and big names. It's not even like you could see them chewing and spitting out some names, like, you know, like well, I guess Terry and Lamps did too, but, you know, like chewing and spitting out some easy names, much like the current manager, I feel like would be the easiest to chew and spit out. But I mean, they've gone through some big names where you thought that guy would win and do some kind of a cleanup. But obviously, if the top is not helping you with the cleanup, that's never going to happen. Maybe these guys are just comfortable there. And Kane says, hey, this is the good life. I'll stay here. I think, like Saido was saying, he'll be like a legend, a hero for that, you know, club, have the records, and then right off into the sunset, I guess. Because here's the thing, you know, if he stays at Spurs and breaks the record, we are talking at least 2 more seasons.
Yeah,
he will be there. So now he's 31, or does he make a move then go to a team as like almost like the final piece to take him over the line or something like that?
Perhaps, yeah. I know he has 1 year left on his contract, so this will be the year that kind of we'll see, right? Does he do the contract extension? Does he renew his contract, or does he let it run down? And then, if depending on that, we'll see if he had his intentions to stay in England, or if he had his intentions to leave and go elsewhere. But yeah, I guess we'll see. I think because looking back on it, we don't really talk about Shearer as much as we probably should, given the goal scoring record. So I think that could end up being the same thing, unless England wins something in the next 4 years while he's there, if England wins something and he has the Premier League goal scoring title record, then I think he will get viewed in a much more positive light. But it might just go down to a sheer situation where we don't really talk about him that much anymore.
That's fair, I think. Yeah, I don't know. When we look back, I think that's what we will say. Like, he should have taken his opportunity, and I guess he will have that next season too. Like, he will be able to go to wherever he wants, and I feel like that's sadly that United does sound like the most likely destination, and sadly that would not be a good deal. I think that would, like, he would do well there, because he would get the service again. I mean, dude is really good. Yeah, he's a diver. He talks like an idiot, but dude is good in terms of build up as well as obviously finishing. I think he would do well whatever team he goes to. So you initially, like, I thought maybe like 5-6 years ago he was more a product of the system kind of thing. Now it's like, I mean, with all these managers coming in and going, he's gonna find, he knows where to be, and when he gets the ball, he knows where the goal is. He's just like one of those players. So 2 seasons though either way to reach the record. So that would be odd when he goes and breaks the record that's United or somewhere like that, or maybe it'll be Liverpool. I just throw this rumor out there too. What the hell? Probably not, because we're not gonna pay the wages probably he would want. De Gea leaving United. This is a headline where it's Mark Ogden says it's not a loss. Do you think it's a loss? They're going after Onana. Now they're going after a different goalkeeper. I know he's nowhere near the old goalie that he was. But is it a loss to kind of like change it now, or it was time to do it anyway?
I think it's time. He was he was the last player from the Fergie squad. So I think at some point you have to make that decision and just cut the tie. I think given how United wants to play out from the back, De Gea is not very good with his feet and playing out from the back. So they want to go in, and it makes sense to go into a direction with a keeper who's able to play that role much better than De Gea was. And on his day, De Gea was phenomenal. He had some absolutely wonderful saves we'll always remember. He had some fantastic games that we'll remember, but there was a bit of inconsistency that came in his tenure. And I think given the inconsistencies plus his age, plus his lack of being able to play with his feet, I think that's ultimately what drove him away from, or what drove United to decide to cut the ties with him.
I'm just shocked that United didn't do a better job of getting, younger. I mean, I guess they tried it with Henderson. Having some kind of a better succession plan to, I mean, we talk about, it's a huge deal. I mean, think about Mignolet years, who I love as a teammate in locker room, as a person. He was a great dude. But man, goalie is a huge part of what you do. And I'm only talking about like building play, like you're saying with the feet and stuff, but having that person behind you that you trust is huge for a defense. It affects your entire back line.
Yeah.
Set pieces, everything. So I'm amazed that it's a huge change, I think, for them, because you exactly knew what you were getting with De Gea. And I know he's had some clunkers and some huge mistakes, but at the same time, there are a lot of games that I've watched and I was like, man, if it wasn't for De Gea, this was like ugly. Even in games where we blew them out. I mean, really, you don't look back at those games where we got like 4-0, 5-0, and 7-0, and you don't say like, man, De Gea was horrible that day. He still made some like ridiculous saves within those games. So I think it's very risky. It is time, though. I do agree to that. I think it was time to do it. At one point, you got to do it. I'm just shocked that they didn't do. Well, maybe I shouldn't be shocked, but I'm amazed that they didn't do a better job of a succession plan, knowing his age. If they signed a younger keeper, I think the keeper would come knowing, hey, De Gea is old. He's on his way out. Yeah. And I don't think De Gea would be offended knowing, hey, I'm old. I'm on my way out, kind of a deal. But that's what I was more shocked with. Rumorville has him, which I really, really fear, because I don't want the money going there. And we already have like one of Turkey's national goalkeepers is going to Fenerbahce as one of the possible options, because ideally he would rather go to Spain, but the big three over there all have goalies, so really no spot for him to slot into. So more than likely, unless he bites the bullet and goes to a like a Sevilla like team that level and says, yeah, that's fine, I'll just be back in Spain at least. I mean, I would think he's a good candidate for Saudi Arabia as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Somebody on his way out. But that's why when the Fenerbahce rumors came out, I was like, well, let's hope some Saudi team comes in and swoops him out with like a ridiculous wages, because I really would not like to get him over there. And yeah, Chris is right. I think he will get some big money because, again, it's a name that people have watched for decades now, literally. So I think he would get that attraction. So let's stay with the Fenerbahce team over here. Obviously, this headline is actually from a Turkish paper. Actually, Jamie, our old friend Jamie, the Irish Jamie, sent this to me yesterday. He said, like, hey, what's the scoop with this? So the main scoop with this initially is Fenerbahce is right now doing preseason. They have a lot going with Zenit. So, like, they have like some youth team arrangements. Obviously, this dates prior to the war and everything like that. Like, they exchange youth players or whatever the heck they do. Fenerbahce has not gained shit from it, so whatever they do, it's not very beneficial either way. But so there are tournaments over there right now. It's a 4-team tournament, similar to the ones they do over here in Singapore and stuff like that. But Dynamo Kiev went apeshit when they saw Fenerbahce playing them. They said, the blood money, you're helping murderers continue their bloody actions on Ukrainian territory. Fenerbahce Sports Club, no honor, no shame, no conscience, shame on you. So to give a backstory to this, there's some bad blood between these two clubs from last year, where they played against each other in the Champions League qualifiers to go into the Champions League, and some shady game in Ukraine initially, very shady, like a shady red card, blah, blah, blah. That's when it was in its initial stages. Everyone was pretty much half Ukrainian. So I really feel like, Fenerbahce got screwed on that one. But then they get eliminated from the Champions League. So they meet again in the Europa. They're in the same group. And Fenerbahce wins both games, both ugly games. There's a lot of dirty talk going back and forth. So they come back. What do you say about this as somebody looking at it from outside?
It's tough because if we go with this, if we go by this logic, then countries like China, Israel, USA, they should also be banned from world sports.
Yes.
Given what they do, right? So like half the world will be banned from playing. So I don't know. It's really difficult for me to form a good opinion on this, because I feel like while I understand why it might be sensitive to Kiev, I also, looking at it from an outside perspective and with kind of, I guess, devil's advocate for lack of a better word, it's just that it was such a double standard given what else goes on around the world that kind of just gets brushed aside. Just like it the war in Ukraine is obviously awful, but it's not the only war that's going on. It's not the only thing that happens in the entire world. So I feel like there has to be a moment where you kind of sit back and realize there's a lot more to digest when it comes to a situation like this than just Group A versus Group B kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, for obvious reasons, certain things get more attention than others. I mean, sadly, it's like world politics. That's how it rolls. I guess more than that, which I understand that part. And I initially thought it is an odd choice by Fenerbahce as well. But these agreements we know that they're made years in advance. And I'm sure there's kind of like, I guess we're going there kind of a thing. I don't know how big they were on it. I know at the time, like, we bought a player, we sold them a player, all kinds of stuff. So this was probably almost like, okay, next year we're going to do a preseason too. I mean, Liverpool has done the same thing. We've done some preseason with teams we got players from and all that. The double standard part that comes to me is, so when I got this from like Jamie yesterday, I was watching the game as I got it. And I was like, well, let's see what they do when they play the other two teams. So Red Star is also there for this tournament, and Neftchi is the other team. I know that's the right pronunciation. It's a team from the Azerbaijan League. It's a preseason. They're all in the vicinity, so they're all there. I was like, well, let's see if they have the same backlash to those clubs as well when the games happen. Well, then my brother is like, well, they already freaking played those teams because the Russian league is about to start earlier, so they played their games earlier. So when they played against Red Star and Neftchi, Kiev did not show the same reaction and attacking that they did to Fenerbahce. And obviously, it goes a lot more about, where Turkey stands. Turkey's kind of like hands off on this whole thing for the most part, talking to this guy, talking to that guy, and shit like that. So I know like there's a lot of like politics that goes into it, but I thought you rarely see like this much over the top of a club attacking another club, obviously publicly on Twitter. So are you like shocked with the reaction, how they went? I mean, that's pretty. I'm like, when he mentioned it, I was like, oh, they probably just like tweeted out something, and then I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it's just like they went all out. There's blood splatters and everything on their like photo. I'm like, holy cow!
I think the biggest thing is as a country like Ukraine, I don't think there's ever been another country that's received so much support behind a war like in history that I can remember. Like every part of the world, what it felt like was supporting Ukraine and hoping and trying to help in whatever way they could. So I
think it's still. Everybody is, because obviously, it's a bullshit ordeal what's happening there. So it's almost hard not to support them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't at all, but we also should recognize that it's not the only conflict that goes around in the world. And like Ukraine has sent troops into Iraq, like in like was it 20 years ago, along with the U.S. So like if we're gonna play it like that, then there's gonna be so many more clubs on Twitter posting blood on our hands. Like you could just say literally every person in the world has blood on their hands because they have a tie to X or tie to Y. And so I think it was incredibly unnecessary. And that's pretty much as far as I'll get into that, I think, because I don't want to, say anything too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. World politics is an ugly, ugly world. So if you get that, I was just shocked that, it was more like, I mean, I kind of know why, but you would think a club would not go. I can see like a fan group or something like that doing like that. That's fine, whatever, because there's bad blood, no pun intended. Like there's bad blood between the two clubs from last year altogether. I mean, there were some ugly games. Fenerbahce fans were chanting like Putin's name and stuff, which was embarrassing by itself. Like I know you're trying to get under the skin of the other side, but that's freaking like ridiculous for them to do that. And it was obviously it was like the ultras that are like nationalists and stuff like that. So it was just like ugly overall, the whole thing was. So I know they have, they don't like the whole ordeal from that, and I don't blame them for that. If I'm in a war with the country and I'm playing soccer and the other guys are chanting the other guy's name, I'd be freaking pissed too, especially the way the war it's unfolded and like what's behind it and stuff. So I do get that. I was just like shocked that the club itself kind of like didn't let the fans kind of like take care of the thing and say, when Jamie mentioned this, I kind of expected like a 2-sentence, we don't approve of teams doing friendlies over there kind of a thing, and not to this extreme. But it was like weird. Mind you, if they watched the game, they probably fell asleep anyway, because it was a horrible, horrible preseason game. But that's the difference. I almost fell asleep watching it, so let's put it that way. So let's get back to our boys. Will our boys have any action soon? Are we just going to kind of sit and wait it out? The reason I said last week that we would sign somebody was mainly due to, like, I felt like we would try to take care of business early so that, everybody is in camp, we can implement the new system and stuff like that. You think this just means that whoever is in the mind of the project of club for next season is already here? Anything else we add is icing on the cake?
Yeah, I think it's one of those, like, it would be another Thiago-esque signing where it kind of just comes out of nowhere and is just a little bit of extra, just a sprinkle on top kind of thing. Like you said, icing on the cake. Because I think given Curtis Jones' performance at the Euros, it's like a new signing, and I knew we were gonna say it at some point. And going back to last week when we started just listing the midfielders, there were enough names there where I feel like Klopp would be comfortable with that amount. And if there is anything else, I think the only thing that we just still need is just at least some sort of center back or right back cover. I think that's all that I'm asking for at this point. I don't expect them to splash another 50 million on Lavia or anything like that anymore, but just another maybe like a 30 to 40 million dollar defender of sorts. And I think that would put them where they want to be, because preseason starts, like actual preseason starts what, in about a week and a half, 2 weeks ish?
About a week, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, there's still time to get these guys in before the actual preseason, and hopefully they are able to get in, because a player with a full preseason under Klopp is 10 times more useful than a player without a preseason. So it's important to get that, and I think that's why we talked about getting them done early and out of the way, is just so they had as much time to integrate into the squad as possible. So at least with the two major signings, at least they are already here and will be fine. It's just essentially what else can we piece together?
Yeah, I guess Karlsruhe, Wednesday, July 19th is the first preseason. Yeah, I get the same sense that these players from this point on are more insurance. Unless it happens in a day or two over here, I feel like, yeah, that's how we're viewing the rest of the moves. They're more insurance. Or, we feel like if we buy them now, we're overpaying. But you would think Klopp would want these people in. But even right now, the Curtis Jones thing is, I don't know. Like, I've never been totally sold. And, I've gotten like my head bashed on the Monday podcast for not being totally sold. But let's face it. And this is, I saw somebody's comment on this yesterday. If he was on the Spanish team, like carrying them to the final, blah, 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 despite a lucky goal or whatever, but, like still like winning a goal and stuff like that, I think fans would be more like, we got to get that. Our midfield needs somebody like this. Because he's already here, we're kind of like, it's just like a new signing, and like everybody rolls their eyes. Like, would you, based on his performance, I don't know how many games you watched out of the tournament, but based on his performance, if you had a different passport, would you be like, man, we got to go get this guy? Or would you be excited to get him at least?
Yeah, and given his age too, right? We would look at that and go, man, that's a very young, promising midfielder right there. Good size, and that's the thing. He's not a little guy. So I think size-wise, if you put him in a midfield with Szoboszlai, they're both over 6 feet tall. Like, they both have nice, strong frames. I feel like that's a good physical presence in the midfield potentially, and that's something that I think is a little understated sometimes, is just having the physical size in the midfield. I know, the games are won and lost in the midfield, but if you can at least be somewhat intimidating with your size and be able to use those frames well, I think that goes a long way. So having, especially with McAllister being like, 4'7" or whatever he is, having him in between those two would fit really nicely. And I'm not going to change who I think is going to be starting. I know last week I think I said McAllister, Fabinho, and Szoboszlai. But yeah, I don't think it's going to go, Jones, McAllister, Szoboszlai, because there's not much defending there. Though I will say Jones and Szoboszlai's work rates and getting back are really good. So that could be something to experiment with. But yeah, I think if he was someone who wasn't on the team already and he wasn't English, there would be that shiny new toy situation with it, and people would be a lot more excited, and people would be groaning about us not going after this guy and seeing another team go after him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Gally thinks about it tonight on the podcast, because I know these guys were already sold. I mean, I kind of like what I saw at the end of last season, but I'm always afraid to take a small sampling at the end of the season and kind of like run with it. I do want to like make sure it is consistent, and I don't want to like, kind of like go into the battle with a guy that I feel like maybe he's not all there. But yeah, this was definitely promising. I guess the other concern is going to be now is his workload, how many games he's played. So obviously he's going to get a break and everything now, miss part of the preseason, but then he will be back there. I think this was really a huge experience for him and a confidence builder. And we talked about how his confidence was a little shattered. So this could be like the boost that brings back the semi-cocky Jones that made him a good player while being humbled by the past experience of going up, coming down, trying to climb your way back up, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
but we'll talk about it tonight with Gally at our regular time, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. No Bickler tonight. If you're in the Manhattan area, stay inside.
Watch out.
Yeah, stay inside. Close your doors, lock your doors, because there's a Bickler around you in the vicinity. But yeah, we'll be back on our regular time tonight. We will see you guys then. Have an awesome, awesome week, everybody. Take care.